There you go. You're on.
All right. So this is the Easthampton Housing Partnership, and it is 6:47.
On the day. It's the day.
Oh, on June 18th. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is an update from Elizabeth Fishwater from Habitat.
Well, thank you. Well, I think the last time I was here, I was about a minute on the job.
Yeah.
And so it's been a couple months, and I've had a chance to get acclimated with the organization and get acclimated with the different builds that we have in our pipeline, including the two in Easthampton, Everett Street and East Street. So on Everett Street, our comprehensive permit application is about 90% finalized, and the one thing that's holding me back from sending it in is that when I reached out to Ty and Bond to get a copy of the response action report for the remediation on the site, the gentleman that I spoke to that wrote the report made a comment that just made me pause a little bit, and that was, he said, I was expecting the developer to eventually call me because while the site meets the cleanup guidelines in accordance with all the Massachusetts regulations, there are some residual fumes that you're going to notice when you start doing your site work. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do a little bit more due diligence on this just before one that we put out because the comprehensive permit's $1,900, which is quite a bit of investment for us. And then also when we get our comp permit, all that responsibility for all of that is on the Habitat. So I just thought, I'm brand new. My assumption is that it's okay, but it's always good to do due diligence. So I was able to secure some volunteer help from Dan Felton at Environmental Consulting Services, and he's reviewing the report just to say, hey, looks good, go forward. So that's where we're at right now, but all the other components of the application are about 90% done. One of the other things that this particular Habitat didn't have a solid template for that I felt comfortable submitting was an affirmative fair housing marketing plan in the format that I'm used to seeing, one that I know Tony Hall at DHCD likes, and I talked to her about it, and she gave me some feedback on it, and so I rewrote the whole plan, and so that took me a little bit of time, more than I had expected, given where we were in the process. So those are a couple things that are slowing down the process, and so what I would like is if you would consider giving me your support in writing a letter to the mayor to ask for an extension on our 40B application, not the application, but the actual permit, because I think we're probably several months behind at this point, some of which I think was just the change in leadership, but then some of these issues. I feel confident that once I hear back from Dan, that we can move forward pretty quickly, but I'd like to get that feedback from an expert before I actually submit the application. So that's something that I'd like.
And this is the application to DHCD?
Yeah.
Okay. For the LIP?
Exactly.
Site eligibility letter? Okay.
Yeah, which required the whole budget, the site plan. There was a lot of planning to do in order to get that ready, and that's all done. But I'm kind of holding back.
Okay.
For this reason.
I would support it if you're not comfortable with the environmental. You would inherit that mess, for lack of a better way, if there is in fact not in compliance. And
yeah, I'm not saying that it's not.
Well,
I don't want that to be the message.
Okay.
It's more that because I'm new on the scene, I feel like it's prudent to do.
You're doing due diligence, and
right.
We respect. I respect.
Yeah.
That.
Me too.
And my expectation is that it is all okay, but I feel like it's prudent for me to verify that. That's all.
So how long do you think it'll be before you hear back from your volunteer on reading the report? Just so I can get a sense of the time.
I would say within a week.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Yeah, no,
we've been only June, so
yeah.
You do have.
Well, I backed up the whole timeline to see if we could meet the deadline. And my hope had been to actually submit the application on May 1st, and we were going for that, and we were pretty close, actually.
Right.
Libby reached out to you, and we got all the signatures. And it was when I was gathering that report right around then that things kind of slowed a little bit. So, but honestly, even then, because DHCD takes 30 days to come review the site, and then the ZBA application happens after that, usually, in my experience, it's at least 3 meetings. You know, so even at that May 1st,
Right.
I think we would have been looking at...
So probably spring then, if all moves forward?
I would say December or January would be the... Because back then it was looking at November. And I didn't want to have this conversation until my application was in, because I thought, you know, I wanted to show you all of the progress we had made. And unfortunately, I didn't get that far. But it's pretty well cooked. And I'm just waiting on Dan. And I actually sent him an email this morning saying, you know, because he's been saying, you know, in a couple of days, and that's sort of the nature of working with volunteers, which is our model. But I kind of sent him the stern email, like, I've been patient. So he's assured me, and we actually developed a contract too. So I mean, it was very formal, the relationship that we developed with him, so that he could provide the advice and still be under the liability of his company. So it wasn't a casual conversation. It was a very formal conversation. So that's sort of where it's at. And the other, and I don't know how well you know Habitat's model, but one of the things that I've been doing as a newcomer to Habitat is laying out some more formality with our entire procedure. And so I feel pretty excited about the team that we've got, and I've hired some new staff, and I'm about to hire another person that's going to be our volunteer coordinator, which is a brand new position, because we want to make sure that the volunteers that work, especially in Easthampton, we haven't have a positive experience with clear expectations and clear expectations. And that's a new approach to Habitat in the Pioneer Valley. And I've been working with the board members and interviewed several great candidates, and I'm about to make an offer of somebody that has quite a lot of experience in the construction field and with the Habitat model. And so I think that was another kind of groundwork that I was laying that's not directly related to this site, but that is going to help us succeed in making sure that this is a great build and that the volunteers that get involved are going to have a positive experience. So lots of planning going on.
Can you briefly sum up for Jackie?
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
I'm not sure if we met. I'm Elizabeth, the new executive director.
I'm Jackie Bristol-Pereira.
Nice to meet you. So I was just saying that I'm asking the partnership for support in writing a letter to the mayor to extend the expectation around our 40B permit for the Everett Street property. And there's a number of reasons for that. Some of them me being new on the scene and just getting up to speed and it going slower. And then one particular issue is me wanting to verify the environmental issues that were on the site that appear to be clear, but I've engaged a volunteer who's got a professional background in environmental services to take a look at their response action report, and I'm waiting for him and his response to me, just so I can verify. Because ultimately it will become our responsibility.
Your problem. Right.
Exactly. And so it's fairly technical and important for me to get some feedback on that.
Thanks.
So the original deadline was November?
Well, no, it was actually August.
Oh, it was? I thought it was December.
Yeah, you see them in the spring and are really thin.
And what deadline?
The MO's deadline?
It was August.
Oh, it's August?
It's August for the
okay.
comp
I'm going under December. Oh, okay. No wonder I was like,
You see those guys like this?
they're going to respond next week.
No, it was August, and it was
Okay.
It was interesting.
Now I see the panic.
I went back and reread the MOU, and it actually says it's our expectation that we're going to do that. That's the language of the MOU.
Huh.
Because at first I thought it's a hard and fast contract deadline,
Yeah.
but it's a little squishy, which I'm really excited about. But still, I wanted to, give you a sense of what's going on with us.
December must have been the other property.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Maybe that's the,
yeah, and we've passed through our 20-day appeal period, and so
you're good to go.
we're good to go on that. And I'll give you a sense of where we are with that in a moment. But
So do we make a motion in this
Sure.
situation?
I guess we can.
What are we going to extend to?
I guess to support, because I'm going to write a
Are you
note.
looking for a time period that we're looking to? Or just general? We move to support Habitat's request to the mayor to adjust the time schedule?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay. I think we can put that in writing too.
I really appreciate that. Sure. It's definitely coming into an agency brand new and learning both projects and the organizations is a challenge, so I appreciate the support. And so East Street, we have made a decision that we're going to designate this as our first women's build.
Cool.
And we want to build both it's a zero lot line, so we want to do both at the same time. We're putting together a steering committee, and so I invite folks from the Housing Partnership who may be interested in that to join that steering committee. We haven't had our first meeting yet, because I wanted to come and talk to you about that decision.
What does women's bill mean?
No guys.
Not true. So Habitat International has a women's build model that asks that 75% of the leadership of the team is led by women. It also gives you the opportunity to engage Lowe's because they do trainings with the folks that are going to build the houses and actually teach some skills, and they also bring money to the table. So, and it's a way to highlight the work of Habitat in a kind of a twist, and it brings a lot of visibility to the build. So what I'm excited about is one of the visions that I have for this organization is to really formalize some of our build processes, because we've got sort of our organic approach, I would say, and it's the age of the organization and the talent that was here and the leadership that was here before was a little different than my approach, and I think it was an approach that worked, but my style is to formalize things a little bit more, and I want to use the East Street build as the model to create a new way of engaging volunteers. And that for me, it means actually writing out our expectations of what we want our volunteers to do in writing, so that they know what they're signing up for, they know what the timeline and the time commitment is, and they hopefully get the expectations and the experience that we promise them. So towards that end, I'm hiring a volunteer coordinator who's going to help build that model and use the East Street property as our sort of first new build that we're doing to try this out. And so as we develop the materials and the marketing for that, I'd like to bring that in and share it with you. The other thing I wanted to update you on, because I had said this at the last meeting, and I put a halt to it. I had said that the family selection process was in progress. And that actually, I asked the family selection committee to slow down. And the reason why is that in order to have the properties be eligible to be on the housing inventory list, there's a fairly rigorous process to go through around affirmative fair housing marketing.
Okay.
And the Habitat model doesn't quite fit into that. And so I've been doing a lot of education with our with our family selection committee and with the board of why that needs to change.
Okay.
So I actually asked them to put that on hold, and I rewrote the affirmative fair housing marketing plan, and so we're going to follow the more conventional DHCD process around that for all of our builds. It's what my background is. I feel like it actually is fairly straightforward, and it assures that when we get to that point of asking for the units to get counted, we've done all of the groundwork that we need to make sure that we've done that. And I don't want to put that in jeopardy, because that was a piece of the MOU.
And that process allows for us to specify a unit for disabled without any restriction?
No, I don't think it will have restriction.
And when you were speaking before about tightening up your structure, did you think that the houses will be built at a prompter pace than they have historically?
I think The change that will happen is that our planning timeline will be a little bit longer, but then when we get to the construction, it'll move faster.
Okay.
That's my expectation. And so that's a cultural shift, because the habitat model in the past has been sort of,
Years.
or sort of, let it unfold, and it's worked. I mean,
Right.
houses have been built and people have been housed. And I'm more of the methodology of doing more planning up front, so that when you start to execute, you can, move steady on.
Planning is good.
So that's a little bit of a different approach than has been done in the past, but I feel pretty confident that it'll work fine. And East Street is going to be our next build, and we're going to use that as our model.
Okay.
So we're hoping to pull the steering committee together in July, and so I would love to get names, that you might have that we can use to reach out to people. We've already started talking about it with folks that are already in our stakeholder community, and there's some excitement building. Part of the steering committee's job is actually to move through the planning process, so I just want to be clear on what that role will be. We're not looking for the entire volunteer world right now.
Okay.
We're looking for people who are willing to sit down and, clarify the leadership roles that are going to be available for this field, and what their expectations are and that sort of thing. And I've already got a vision of that, and I've already got some of it in writing, but part of engaging volunteers is to engage them in that process too, so that there's a sense of ownership from the very beginning. So.
Can I go back just for a second and ask you, so your family selection committee, you're having them slow down so that you can change the process. Do you see that the DHCD sort of specified process, does that take anything away from how you normally would do it? Do we lose anything by going through that process? I'm just curious.
It's interesting, because it is a total change. The way that the Family Selection Committee was working in the past is they would put out an application, they went through a sort of, the underwriting for the income was done very well and by bankers to make sure that they were income qualified. But beyond that, it was very subjective, I would say, is the approach. And DHCD, of course, wants everything objective. So yes, you will lose some of that subjectivity. And
right.
And so
around fit, you think? Is that the right way to?
I'm not sure. I think part of the fit is that somebody's willing to commit to being a part of
the program,
the program in the building.
Right.
So.
Right.
And that is something that DHCD is comfortable with.
Okay.
So that piece of it is still going to be part of the selection process.
Okay.
But if there are, say, 4 households that all meet those criteria, it'll probably be a lottery that ends up the tiebreaker.
Yep. Okay.
So
Rather than the committee just picking a family
that they, yes,
that they connected with. Or
yes,
okay.
Yes, and that's a change.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
But I feel like that will ensure that these units get counted on the list.
Right.
And I don't want to get caught a year from now when we go through that process and find out that I was responsible for missing that, because I know it's really important to the city and it meets the city's goals. And so, I've taken the time to educate the Family Selection Committee about this. It's a definite cultural change. But I think it's a good one, and it also standardizes our process a little bit more.
Right.
And it standardizes it with the state process. So if we ever do use other state funding, like home funds or anything else that might be available at the state level, we're beginning to align ourselves with that so that we can be ready. Yeah.
Okay. So I was curious.
No, it's a really good question. It's a question that I've been asked by the board too.
Yeah.
So.
Do we have a local preference issue on this? I'm trying to think. No.
Let me ask you that. I mean, they hate local preference.
They hate local.
Yeah, but there is a provision if you can make a case of why that's important. And I haven't submitted the plan yet, so I would need your feedback to help me make that case.
I mean, it used to be that you could just say you wanted local preference and that was fine, and then DHCD said, well, no, you have to approve it. So I don't remember if we specified in the RFP that there had to be a local partner.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't think we did.
Oh, okay. I mean, local.
I think that might become an issue because there's CPA money.
Yeah, exactly. I
And
think
that-
CPA mentioned it. Wasn't it mentioned?
It was so long ago now, it's hard to remember.
Yeah, it was mentioned in
But
front of
they
the CPA.
typically do ask for that.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's not in statute.
Okay.
So unless we,
I think it came up at city council actually too, as a question at least.
Unless it's in your agreement with the city from us.
Okay, so then we should probably not worry about it if we
Okay.
don't see it anywhere.
Right.
I mean, I just happened to have found like a whole pile of stuff on East Street in my basement yesterday. I was like, oh, look at all this. So I can look back and just see if there's anything that comes up. I mean, I think like you're saying, local is defined in a lot of different
Right.
ways. And I think,
Right.
we should be realistic that local, Pioneer Valley families,
Right.
is probably what we're going to get.
Yeah.
Right.
Rather than, people moving from far and wide. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how others feel about it, but
Well, and again, once the families are housed, they're local.
that's true.
Well, in my experience, you meet the marketing criteria that you have to meet, but then you can do extra marketing that's more centralized and and that's okay to do that. So you can do more outreach, and there is going to be publicity, so I think, hopefully we'll generate a lot of interest in Easthampton.
And how long will so when the selection process gets into gear, I know it's on hold, how long will it be between when you start it up again and a decision is made?
Yeah, it's a 60-day timeline that DHCD requires.
Okay.
And so what I did is I drafted the plan to meet East Street and Everett at the same time
Okay.
so that they could approve it at the same time. So I'm kind of submitting it all at once.
Okay.
And that's the last step before we can market East Street. And we can start that once Tony gives me the go-ahead. And she and I have gone through this process before, and I know she likes my approach because
Okay.
I've done it in the past with her. So I'm pretty confident that what I'm going to give her is what she's looking for.
Okay.
And hopefully she'll turn it around and then we can start to market. But you have to market it for 60 days.
Oh, okay.
That's part of the regulation.
Thank you. Sounds like progress is being made.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great two projects, and part of my speed is to make sure that we're ready, because I don't, part of it is I'm new to the community.
Right.
Obviously I want to make a good impression, but also it's important to do your planning so
Right.
that when you start to engage hopefully 100 volunteers that are going to help, we have a good slot for everybody and we know what they're, what we're going to ask them to do. So if you have any people that you would like us to put on the invitation list, and it's not only women, if you think,
I need to let my daughter know. She's
I mean,
supposed to meet
that's
now.
going to be the flavor of the build, so obviously people would be in support of that type of build, but anybody who would like to be a part of that is welcome. And so I know Jenna has my email, so please send me names, because we're starting to pull together an invitation for the steering committee.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if you have people you think might be interested in just volunteering but not for the steering committee, we're starting to collect that as well.
Great.
All right. So thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations to the mayor for his new work. It's so exciting.
Thank you for coming, Elizabeth. This is very exciting updates.
Yes. And I'll be, as we progress, and especially as I get written material, I will start sending it. And you can let me know when you think how, I can come every month if you want, but I don't want to hear from you that often. As we get swinging, maybe that would be good.
Great.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Join the table. Or you see you. You too.
Copy of links? article.
I was trying to conserve paper because I find that I bring lots of copies and then they're all here at the end of the meeting. So I do have a copy of the article about the mayor and then a copy of the remarks that the Undersecretary of DHCD gave at the lunch.
All available on email if you want them.
Yes, if you would like them, I can email them. So the mayor got, this came about between our meetings, but, yeah, so he was nominated for a Housing Hero Award by at the Massachusetts Housing Partnerships Housing Institute, which is an annual event that I highly recommend people attend next year if anyone's interested. It's a great 2-day event. It's actually really geared toward committees like ours and planning departments, and talks about all kinds of different, affordable housing programs and strategies, and they talk about, affordable housing trusts. The year that I went this year, they had whole sessions on the development process, and it's really geared toward volunteers and stuff. So it's 2 days. It's in Devon's, which is kind of a hall. And on the first day, they have a Housing Heroes Award.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which they've been doing for a few years. And so the mayor was the recipient of the award for the elected official. And Jessica and I were there, and the mayor and Karen Cadu and Melissa, I can't remember her last name, from finance. Yeah, from finance. So it was nice. And so there were some nice remarks, and he got a pretty plaque and a declaration from the House, representatives, which was very nice. And the other 2 awards went to a volunteer in Acton, and another went to the director of the Chelmsford Housing Authority, who had everyone in the whole room in tears. It was like this impassioned, acceptance speech, which was very sweet. So his mom was there. So it was nice. So there's been some publicity about it. The mayor was pleased.
It was all over Facebook.
Oh yeah,
Nice article in the paper this morning.
Nice article in the paper. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. That happened.
Becky has to stop saying that I'm the chair of this committee. I'm going to tell her.
Congratulate you.
Yeah. Because I need to do one more thing.
Well,
She knows she can always call me for a quick sound bite. So I'm on her short list for anything related to housing.
Well, and MHP actually did a whole press packet and all kinds of.
So Janet got Becky to slow down on that article so that she could incorporate more stuff into it.
Well, because I called the press guy and he's like, well, if you give me till tomorrow, I'm going to have the whole thing out. And I was like, all right. So they had a whole, and then this morning I had to ID the photos because they took pictures of, we had Team Easthampton. So it was us and then actually Joanne Campbell from Valley CDC and Pat Burns, who's one of their board members, they came too. So
nice.
We had a crew. So it was good. I want to table the discussion about affordable housing trusts because nothing's happened.
I had a conversation with Melissa.
Oh, good. Okay.
But I didn't bring my notes from that.
Do you want to talk about it
She
next
doesn't
time?
think it's necessary. And she thinks it's just would make things more complicated. But I have more detailed notes than that somewhere.
All right. So let's talk about it next.
Yeah.
Actually, we should also talk about our summer schedule. But let's talk about that. Because Rita Farrell did send me and Jessica a list of other affordable housing trusts in other communities, which I have done this with. So I figured maybe if I called 1 or 2 of them, I'd have more information for you. So let's table that to next time. Also in the paper, Jessica, I don't know if anyone else saw this,
Yeah.
It was a guest column by Jerry Fix.
Yeah, it was great. Didn't you posted it?
Yeah, I did.
Thank you for that.
And I don't know, Ray and Kathy, and I don't know if some of you know the whole, he was here, they were here a few months ago. So for a long time, the Social Justice Committee up at Our Lady has been working on trying to get a couple of their surplus properties donated for affordable housing. And a few months ago, Jerry was here and was very excited because the
Following day.
and I don't remember who decided, the Father Doug or whomever, that they decided that they were, one of the properties, the rectory building, could be designated as affordable housing. And we talked about ways that they could do that, and do I have a request for proposal, and kind of different ways about how that could be developed for affordable housing, and it seemed like they had really come a long way.
Guilt angle really well.
And then they had a meeting where they invited some people in, and it was presented to people who might be interested in developing the property that they could have the property if they moved it 100 yards to accommodate the Our Lady Summer Festival.
Once a year.
Right.
Summer festival.
So it was not as close to the ground. So it's just, and that's basically what the guest column is saying, is that,
Because it's always really good for the stability of a building to pick it up a little bit too.
Right.
And it lowers the cost of the rehab.
It's not cost, right, it's not prohibitive at all.
Well, especially since it's not even moving it off-site, it's moving it like 100 yards. Like,
That's
it's like,
insane.
Yeah. Is it a brick building?
So do you think they were sincere in their desire to embrace affordable housing?
well, how frustrating it must be.
I know, those poor guys, Jerry and Mike and the rest, and that's kind of, I think I made snarky comments about that, these guys worked. They poured their soul.
Yeah, they really did.
And they're doing it as a matter of faith.
Yes. And I can't imagine how disappointing that must be.
But I'm wondering if this might have repercussions.
I hope.
It's really well written.
You mean among the various people who might
Constituencies,
get about it and it's done?
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly, the article certainly pulls out your heartstrings as far as...
I said to Alexis, he applies guilt very effectively. The way that the Catholic should. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very constructively, I think.
Yeah.
So
It's a bummer.
it's a bummer.
Yeah.
It's just silly. I mean, it's a why even let it get to this point if all you were going to do is say, well, then you have to move the building.
Yeah.
So hopefully this makes
And the convent is going to be used for historical
records.
artifacts.
the one building that's actually posed great for affordable housing because it already has bathrooms and wider rooms.
And
Because people used to live in it.
right. Well, people used to
used
live
for
in
housing
Rectory,
before.
but, I bet you more people. I bet you there were more nuns in the convent. I mean, that's how it was when I was growing up. There was a whole, school system worth of nuns in the convent, and 3 priests in the rectory.
Right.
And the buildings were by, comparatively larger.
So
It seems silly.
It's,
disappointment.
Yeah.
But, maybe it'll turn itself around somehow.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if there's anything for us to do necessarily. I think if they wanted to come back, they know they're welcome to.
well, do we write, is there anything we can write and say, gee, that's a shame?
Is it, you mean?
Yeah.
Or to Father Doug.
He's ignored us in the past, if you recall. We've invited him on several occasions. We could write a letter.
Well, I would, there's decision makers. There's a committee of people who made this decision. It'd be interesting to find out what their names were. Whether one is actually a prominent banker in town, or
I could always contact Jerry and just try to get some background information about what exactly happened.
Yeah, it would actually be interesting to find out if it was the committee that put the kibosh on it, or if it was the diocese that did it.
Yeah.
I thought they were on their own.
Talk to someone at the diocese, I thought.
Yeah.
Maybe that didn't happen yet.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask
I mean, he
her.
wrote
But I
it on
thought it was
behalf of
pretty
several
local.
members, but
I thought the decision was pretty local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, I think
That it
so.
wasn't necessarily, it was a group of people in Easthampton who made that
Yeah.
decision.
To move the bill, but they'd have
Yeah,
to.
but I always smell a rat in the hierarchy,
Right.
I was raised Catholic.
No,
Which is why I can't talk to them anymore.
All right, well, I I can email Jerry and just try to get a little bit more
Yeah.
background about, what exactly happened or who the decision makers were.
And you could also ask him if he thinks there's anything we
That
can
we
do to
can-
support them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't read that draft report yet. I need to read by Thursday night.
You don't, you need to read one section.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that in a minute. The one thing I want to talk before that is at the Housing Institute, there was a presentation from MHP. MHP for a long time has had an affordable mortgage program called Soft Second, which we learned is going away. And
Really?
it's being replaced by something called One, which is similar to Soft Second.
They just didn't want that name.
Well, the problem, what's interesting, Gina Gavoni, who's the woman who manages the Soft Second program, I guess in the last few years, the term Soft Second and Soft Second was a 2 mortgage program, and the second mortgage was an interest-only mortgage, and then it kind of graduated into a full second mortgage. The term Soft Second and interest-only became these like really toxic words, and I think was damaging their stellar reputation. The Soft Second has a very low foreclosure rate, requires first-time home buyer and post-purchase education. So anyway, so the governor, the week of June 12th, announced it was Housing Week in Massachusetts. I don't know if any of you saw this, but there was all kinds of housing announcements made about
Get money in.
Honey, are you being simple?
Tool.
But one of it had to do with, 10,000 new mortgages or something. There was all kinds of stuff. So, and it had to do announcing this program called One. So I'll pass this around in case anyone wants to see their committee flyer.
So is it structured the same way?
It's similar. It's
Okay.
only one mortgage.
Okay.
But it's similar in terms
Like
of,
graduated.
yes, graduated payments, low down payment, first-time homebuyer education.
Hopefully it will help. I know a friend of mine, her daughter bought a condo using a Soft Second, and she just tried to get a change in her terms to get a lower rate, and it was, nobody wanted to deal with her. Because the bank that, this is out in Clinton, so the bank that had originally done the mortgage had been subsumed by a bigger bank, which doesn't do that, the Soft Second program. So they had to go through they finally did get what they wanted, but it took a long time.
What's
And I think part of it was, there is that second mortgage was part of the problem, that they didn't want to touch it, because plus she didn't have any equity built in, because of the interest only being paid for the first 10 years.
Is there a typical value to what a Soft Second is? I always thought it was in like the $5,000 range, or is it significantly more or
Like the
not?
savings?
Well, no. What's
That
the
second mortgage piece?
yeah?
Gosh, I don't remember.
Well, it was an 80-20 with a 3% down.
Okay.
So the second one was 17%, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because now they're kind of shopping around this one mortgage program. And similar to Soft Second is you need banks to want to do it. And so they have like 6 lenders that they announced in Boston that were willing to do it. But when Jessica and I were sitting there listening to it, we wondered if maybe there's a role to play in trying to work with Easthampton Savings or Florence Savings. I know Easthampton Savings never did Soft Second.
Florence does.
But maybe it's an opportunity, to think about if we wanted to, invite Gina to come out and try to get some folks from the local banks together so that she can talk about this. I think that's sort of what's been happening is the nonprofits and other agencies have kind of been, using their bank contacts. And we might want to see if Valley CDC wanted to be in on that, what kind of advocacy they're doing. Joanne was talking about, she's on the board at HAP and things that HAP was doing. But I didn't know if you all thought that seemed like a worthy activity of the housing partnership.
Isn't the president of Easthampton Savings retiring? Am I remembering that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think with the new leadership change that they might be more open to?
Depends on who the leadership is changed to.
I don't know why they were resistant to it.
The presumed front runner, probably not.
really? I don't know
Yeah.
the details about that stuff, so.
I don't know.
Well, he's, doesn't really believe in affordable housing.
Okay.
Oh,
If it's a senior vice president
Yeah.
there.
It's true.
I mean, I stood in opposition to him in this room in front, talking about planning. Jason Duda had to say, you know, to him, well, it's about social responsibility that he was talking about. And then, you know, I didn't think about it did after, but somebody in the financial business, in the banking business, talking about, oh, well, these unfair subsidies, you know, if it wasn't for the federal income tax subsidy for home mortgages, the banking industry would be a very different environment. I mean, that's the federal subsidy for mortgages is the only housing program that really exists. I'm sorry, that's my rant for the night.
all right. Well, I'll talk to Jess to see if maybe talk to Joanne Campbell and see what they're doing since
Right.
they serve Easthampton. So, I mean, I think if they were already planning to do something, maybe it's a supportive role that we could play. Or
And Joanne has good, the Valley has good relationships with farms.
Yes. Yeah, and all the banks, really, all the local banks.
all right.
Not that there's many left.
Well, you know, and again, who did, you know, I mean, people keep sort of expanding. I don't know why we need more bank branches, but, you know, would Berkshire Bank out of Pittsfield be local? Kind of, you know, they absorbed Orinoco and they moved here. Easthampton moved down to Westfield. Greenfield is building something over on King Street in Northampton.
Yeah,
Greenfield Co-op.
Yeah. I think they have, so a lot of, I'm trying to remember from my days as a home buyer counselor a million years ago. The local banks who actually did, it seems to me that the local banks who did South Second would be the first people that you would approach and talk to about it, because they already have that history. My remembering of Greenfield Co-op was that they had their own program that was similar, but they didn't do the South Second. I get them confused, the two Greenfield banks, so I could be wrong. Anyway.
All right. Well, talk to Jackson. I thought it could be an interesting thing. All right. Let's talk about CPA.
Can you pass me the...
Yes, please.
Can I ask a quick question first, since I'm sorry I came late, as always. Kathy, are you joining this committee?
I'm in probation.
She's considering it.
Hooray!
Who's on probation? That's good.
I don't know. We should be on our
I'm so excited to see you. It's been a long time.
I know.
And welcome.
I know, thank you.
Before we talk about the plan, which I think I'll ask Alexis to intro for us, I did just want to mention that maybe this is, I don't know if you already got this or not, but we wrote a memo to the CPA committee letting them know what the PVPC funding was used for. In case anyone wants. I didn't make copies for everyone because no one ever
Because we don't all need them. We can just look at that.
But as you may recall, we put out an RFP in 2010. The CPA committee set aside $99,000 for PVPC to use for rehab outside of target area. Originally, I thought we'd use it for 3. They were going to use it for 3 units, but they actually were able to do it for 4.
Yeah.
So this shows you what the 4 units, what the...
Remarkably, I've never seen it.
Maybe you haven't gotten it yet.
Sometimes stuff goes into a hole. I don't know that.
Well, I can send you a copy of that if you would like. She asked me to write it for the CPA committee, so maybe she's giving it to you at your next meeting.
Who's she?
Jessica?
She doesn't come to our meetings.
Or Jamie. Maybe she's giving it to Jamie to bring to your next meeting.
Oh, that's nice.
But it does show you all the things that the money was used for, which is actually a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty impressive, actually. So that is out there. But on Thursday at
6:30.
6:30
Upstairs.
Upstairs in the big room.
Would you like to talk about this?
Sure. In the big room, I know. Who knows? We could get 3 people. We could get 38. No idea. So I think I told you guys a little bit about this last month, maybe, but also my memory's terrible these days. CPA committees generally are required to make annual preservation plans by the state. We, as a city, have not ever done one, ever. I don't know why we hadn't ever been called out on it, but we hadn't, so we decided that we would. So the plan, there's no guidelines for what should be in the plan other than that you should have one. I worked with Jamie Webb, the assistant planner, to draft something, and he came up with this monstrosity, like 44-page thing that I was like, no one's gonna read, no one knows. Anyhow, we wrote it down, and the committee like freaked out because it was really, really specific. So what we needed. Yeah, it wasn't what we needed. So this is what we came up with. It is watered down a little bit, but the committee was really worried about backing ourselves into a corner and specifying that these are the things that we're going to fund, and maybe this amazing project's going to come out of nowhere and it's not listed in the plan, and then what do we do? So we tried to list things that we felt that were priorities, but left ourselves room to say, these are things we would consider, but we're open to anything as long as it falls within the things that CPA can fund. So we did solicit all the community organizations to give us their priorities for funding for the year. We heard back from most of them. I think we didn't ever hear back from the Historic Commission or Parks and Rec. And maybe one
Conservation.
Conservation? Thank you. Even though one of the Conservation Commission members is on the CPA, which is very bad. So we're having a public meeting on Thursday to get the city's feedback. If there's anything in here that people object to or something that people really want to make sure is in here. But in the kind of preamble to the preservation plan, I think we try to be clear that this isn't set in stone, we'll fund things. These are just like general things that we've thought about and or gotten from other folks.
So I did not make, I have a full copy of the plan here. I didn't make you a full copy of the plan. It's online.
Jamie emailed it around to some people.
Yeah.
It's also on
Is everybody on that list? Okay.
I didn't get it.
I can forward it to everybody else.
I'd like to see who was on it.
Yeah, in the total, the appendix is all of the priorities that we got from the organizations themselves or the committees themselves.
Right.
Which isn't in this part of the plan.
Well, some parts of it.
Well, I did include Appendix D, which has the priority project lists.
Thank you.
There was something that we wanted to add, but I don't know.
Well, so that's why I passed it out in case, we can, so somebody from the Housing Partnership should probably be there on Thursday.
I said I would go.
Okay, thank you.
By 7:45, because I play trivia.
I was there last week.
I wasn't there last week. I was handing my comps. Let me see if I can find.
So I don't know if people have comments or things that they want to make sure that Jackie stresses at the meeting.
But there was something, when we had a conversation about it. There was something that we wanted to add, and I don't know if it made it in, so let me see if I can remember what that was. Anyway.
But so, Alexis,
Yeah.
so the part about affordable housing, this just talks about, what it is and what is going on. And then under project ranking, this is sort of criteria that could be used in making decisions, which is like long-term affordability, harmonious in design and scale.
Yeah, and all that Jamie pulled out of the 2008 master plan.
Okay. Well, I don't know if anyone else has
looking at
other
page
things.
13.
I was looking at page 13, yeah. But then on 18, that's where these are our priorities.
So the criteria, okay. Can I just ask a clarifying question? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
It says additional criteria for community housing. It means it has to meet these, or it's suggested that it meets these?
It's suggested that it meets at least one of those.
Okay. Because I worry all the time about every single project that goes to CPA, they want it to count on the 40B inventory. And I don't think that that's our vision necessarily. I think it's for sure the CPA's vision.
Well, it's not.
I don't mean you, I mean the.
All that predates me.
But that still is persisting on the committee, yeah? Or-
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we haven't had a housing project come up.
Okay.
With
Is
the
that
exception
something that
of
I
the
should
new.
raise in the
Do you
voting?
want it? You don't want it in
This is
there.
draft, we could
I just think that,
take it out
I
of the
mean,
draft.
I don't think that that's the only goal that we have, is to
No.
have units on the inventory. I think we have
Yeah.
a lot broader goals than that around housing lots of different kinds of people affordably, you know?
So-
this-
No,
It's not in there.
It's not in there though. It just says
It's under
long-term,
additional,
that just says long-term permanent deed restriction.
but that to me, that's language that says we want it to be on the inventory. When I read that, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
That might be what they're implying, but you could have a unit, a project at 100% that could have a long-term deed restriction.
I will say that in.
No, what we're looking for is, say we wanted to do housing, say we wanted to do housing rehab, and we were offering $10,000 to $20,000 grants for that. You know, what can you buy? You know.
Right.
See, I don't think you can buy the long deed.
No, but you stabilize
long-term
that neighborhood and.
deed restriction.
I will say that when we were talking about this, no one ever mentioned
Okay,
40B.
okay.
So,
But the PVPC, that month, those units count on the subsidized housing.
They do, because they have a 15-year restriction on them. But do we have to,
if your objection is to permanent deed restriction, I think taking that out would get, people would be grumpy on the committee, particularly some people. Because I think it is important to them that they stay deed restricted.
Okay.
Whether or not that means that they get into the register, I don't know, because it didn't come up.
right. Well, that's usually the conditions under which they get on the list, so.
Well, this says ensures long-term to permanent, so it could be long-term or permanent.
Yes, and again, I didn't write this language, and I think Jamie pulled it out of
The master.
master plan.
Well, I'm only bringing it up because the PVPC units there count for 15 years.
Right.
And nobody on CPA, I don't even think batted an eye about the money being used for rehab.
Yep.
Partly because we already use CDBG money for rehab and there was an existing program, and so we were just kind of like, well, it's
mapped on
the same thing we already do, but no one blinked an eye about the length of time. I mean, it does count, but it only counts for that short period. And I think, to Jim's point, you know, you can't give someone $10,000 in down payment assistance easily and expect that forever
Yeah.
that unit's going to stay deed restricted.
Right. Which means it won't count on the inventory.
But if we can get
For down payment assistance, it won't, because rehab is a special category, I think, right?
Yeah.
Rehab,
There's some reason why.
they get a special.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to raise that because I worry about that emphasis sometimes.
No, I do too.
It's not like there are lots of other pots of money that we can tap into for affordable housing. It also means that we can't, you know, I know when we tried to use it for, when Michelle Morris came, when she was at Valley, to ask CPA if they would support money for foreclosure assistance, and they were adamantly against that.
It still will be.
Yeah. But is there anything else like that, so I guess I want to make sure that whatever's in here is inclusive enough of things that we would think we would want to do. So another thing I'm thinking about that I don't see, and I don't know when it's going to become an issue, is thinking about expiring use properties. I know we've had the conversation and I can't remember the answer to the question of when do we have to start worrying about? So stuff that is already...
Yeah, I think Sullivan over on Liberty Street.
Is that
Come up with an expiring use at some
So
point.
do you know what we're talking about?
No.
Okay. So properties that were developed, and if I get the details wrong, you jump in because it's been a long time since I thought about it, but properties that came on and were developed as affordable housing and were owned by nonprofits had a term under which they exist. So they were, developed, and for 25 years they're affordable, and everyone in there is, their income's checked and all that stuff. But they have a term. So when the term comes up, that whoever's running it, owning it, can decide they want to sell it to a for-profit developer and get out. Or sometimes they turn them into co-ops. They can do lots of different things with the property. But we worry when they come up that they're not going to stay affordable anymore. So that's something that we have to think about.
So you mean that the people that currently own them can just opt out of
Yeah, at the end of the
affordable
term.
and start charging full market value?
It's often for-profits that do that, rather than not. Usually, sometimes they'll refinance the property and then get new restrictions.
The Appleton Corporation is a for-profit business.
But do they own other? Sometimes if they are for-profit and they own other affordable housing, they're in the business of affordable housing, then they, Win Management out of Boston, they're a for-profit and that's what they do. They manage affordable housing. But sometimes, like in Amherst where I work, Equity Residential owns Rolling Green Apartments, which is 204 units, and they're up for expiration in August. And there's not much indication that they plan to renew any type of affordable housing restriction.
There's one like that on Bridge Road in Northampton too that came up recently.
Meadowbrook, and they refinanced and they are still affordable.
I remember when the hubbub happened.
But the owners really walked away with a pot of money that they didn't necessarily.
So is there a listing somewhere?
There is, and actually I got one at the Housing Institute. They gave us an updated one, so I'll look when I get.
But is that something that we should think about including in here somewhere?
Remember, it's not all inclusive.
Right. I know.
Well, that would be.
Is that under?
I would think under the long-term to permanent deed restriction.
Okay. As long as you feel like it's fitting in there. Because this is a guide, but people are going to take it as this is what we do.
Yeah, which is why we really tried to generalize it way more than.
What if you were a cranky city councilor?
Well, why don't you flip to page 18 and look at the
harmonious in design and scale with the surrounding community.
I know. Well, that's always a tricky one. But on page 18 is the housing partnerships our list. So why don't we look at that to make sure that those things also fit into the additional plan.
Look, we snuck that in there, up to 100% of AMI. So has this hasn't been approved or anything, it's just up for discussion?
The CPA committee has all reviewed it, and unless there's something huge that comes up at the public meeting, then to my knowledge, unless there's something in the works that I don't know about, we will approve the plan as it is, maybe with a few like grammatical changes and stuff, but yeah.
So is there no protection for those people who live in this affordable housing?
No.
There's no protection.
Out of luck.
Either they fess up or they move.
And there used to be, so depending on the type of property, like Rolling Green in the 70s, it was built in the 70s and had a federal subsidy. I think it was like a SHARP project or something, which no longer exists. And when that originally expired in 1998, HUD stepped in and gave some vouchers to some Section 8 vouchers, so it preserved some of those people. But now, and then Rolling Green refinanced into like sort of a less subsidized program, but it didn't have all the money that the original one had. But now, HUD doesn't do that, and so now they'd be out of luck. And I work at the Amherst Housing Authority. We have 42 people that live there that will all have to move.
Oh my God.
Really?
Which
Section 8, sir?
It is. Some of these people have lived there their entire lives.
Yeah.
I mean, before the 1998, and they're elders. We have people in there that are in their 80s. They've never moved.
Yeah.
They've never looked for an apartment. So it's, and this has been happening, for decades, but it's Yeah, we don't like to think about it.
There isn't anybody, is it ADP that used to go in and try and get people to form a co-op and buy it themselves? And is that who it was?
I don't know. There's some state money. I mean, like, there's a state agency called CDAC, and they kind of do a lot of advocacy, and so, you know, they try to bring together the owners and state agencies to try to work it out in the town and stuff. But the owner has to be willing to negotiate, and sometimes they're like, you know, especially in Amherst, you know, they get $1,800 for their 3-bedroom apartment. So.
From my students.
From the students. So, you know.
From the scholarship money, you're right.
That's right.
They would much rather have that than the you know, $1,200 that they have to charge on the affordable program.
You know, $1,800 for a 3-bedroom apartment is comparable with Los Angeles. You know, it doesn't sound like Amherst.
Well, they have a pool, you know, and they're on the bus line.
Anyway, anything else missing from our?
If there's anything else, and you know, you think there's something after the public meeting, we're not voting on this until what month is it? June, July.
Right.
So if there's something that comes up, you guys are free to write us a memo or whatever, and or come to our final meeting. Just in case.
But this is just our priority, so it doesn't mean, you know.
Is there something we want to add in terms of like tagging along with the land preservation people?
Not a bad idea. Like we did for East.
Working cooperatively with land preservation to,
This isn't a priority project, it would go in the
kind of,
possibilities.
right.
Right, on page 7, you can put that in there maybe?
On page 7?
Under the affordable housing, put something in there under possibilities, you know, striving to work with land preservation whenever possible. I don't know how what we word it as, but, so what is it, tell me what will be helpful to you to hear from us on Thursday? That this is great and we support it and...
Yeah, I mean, if there's somebody that shows up from the public that is outraged by something that's in here under affordable housing, it'd be great. I don't think it'll happen either, but in case.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, the committee's happy with the language that's in there. I don't have any objections about anything right now.
I'm just trying to see how, like, what's missing, what do we need to have in there to ensure that things will go?
Well, it's not written in stone.
Right. No, it's written on paper. Paper can burn.
Sounds good. Don't pay attention to this. Yeah.
Thanks for getting it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Alexis, and thank you, Jackie, for going on Thursday.
Sure.
To represent us. Does anyone have anything else that's not on the agenda? Do you want to talk about the summer schedule? We often take a month off in the summer. It's already June. Do we want to do that again?
Is it summer?
Didn't feel like that today.
The third Tuesday in August, I will be in Maine. So we can all meet there.
Okay.
In fact, Jess Allen will be up there too.
Where are you going to be in Maine?
Old Orchard Beach.
Nice.
But I'd go to Portland to hang out with all of you.
Thank you.
Well, what if we met in July and talked about the Affordable Housing Trust, since we have a tiny bit of momentum around this issue, and I don't want to like wait 3 months to talk about it again, and then take August off.
Okay.
Okay.
So
That sound good?
16th.
So we would be meeting on the 16th at 6:45.
Okay.
That sound like a fair proposal?
Yes.
We could Skype you in.
In August?
No, in July.
No, I'll be there in July. It's August I won't be.
Oh, I thought you said July.
All right, so we'll meet on July 16th at 6:45, and then we'll take off August.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right.
don't think I have anything else.
Don't forget to vote next Tuesday.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
Right, I'm gonna turn this off. Meeting is 7:51. The meeting is adjourned.
Bye.